morning on this wonderful Thursday for episode 79 of the SmartB Sports Update podcast, in which we continue with the fallout from the disastrous New South Wales State of Origin game in Sydney.
Yeah, morning, mate. So now it looks as though Latrell Mitchell, of all people, may be in the frame.
Well, he had a cracker of a game in that massive win the other day. He had the best game of his season. He did a cryptic Instagram posts immediately after the loss.
Scored the first try, played a key role in 3 others, and made 4 tackle busts in that game. Latrell Mitchell. So, obviously, as has been very well documented, Joseph Suaalii needs a replacement after copping a 4-game ban for that very now infamous hit on Reece Walsh in Game 1. So I think that Latrell Mitchell is the risk that New South Wales have to take in Game 2. He may not play his best football, but it's a gamble that they have to take. I think the Blues, they've just got no option now but to roll the dice on Latrell, having lost the first game so resoundingly by 38 points to 10.
Team's named on Sunday, right? This Sunday?
Yes.
Yeah, so Rabbitohs will play the Broncos tomorrow night, and that gives him another chance. People ask, where's this been all year? Because that game was ridiculous against the Titans. I understand Titans are not the best team in the world or anything, but they were beating the Rabbitohs on the ladder, and he was the best player on the field.
Yeah, and it was a resounding win, a 46-12 win. And the Titans have improved since a bit of a sluggish start to the season themselves.
Everybody is asking, where's that been all year? And you'd have to say, change your coach, change your scenery, change your motivation. That's where it's been.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you're picking Latrell Mitchell. You're only picking him for 1 game. So, I think it's, as I said before, I think it's a gamble that they have to take. As I said, it may not work out, but they lost 38-10. That they can't afford to play it safe. There's no safety option here. They need to just, as I said, they need to roll the dice and pick him. I think. I know that there was talk about Bradman Best or Matt Burton, but to be honest, I think Matt Burton's sort of looking more and more like he should be picked in the halves, I think, after how well he played against the Eels on Monday. I'd be looking at Matt Burton at 5'8" and Mitchell Moses at halfback. I don't know if you can pick Hines and Luai in the halves again for the Blues for Game 2.
My assumption is that it will be Edwards will get changed in for Tedesco.
Yeah, that's another point.
Moses will come in for Nico Hines because they were the 2 first choices, really, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, Mitchell Moses was the second choice after Nathan Cleary. And then Suaalii has to be replaced, and based on the single game, Latrell Mitchell is the best option. As you said, like it's the gamble they have to take.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think they should change the team.
So you would leave Luai there?
Yeah. I think the 5th tackle options would have worked if the New South Wales had 13 men on the field. The issue was they only had 12 men on the field. And so, I had a text message chat with Mitchell Pearce the other day about it, and he pointed out, like, you've got to change your attack when you only got 12 men on the field in attack. We discussed it like the other day, last week, straight after the game. When there's 12 people on the field, and it doesn't only affect your defense, it affects your attack. And unfortunately for Nico Mitchell Pearce 2.0 Hines, he's copped the brunt of it. And I think in this case, I've been an avid defender of the people who are in this kind of situation forever. But I think in this case, for Nico Hines, unfortunately, it was actually, you can lay a lot of the blame on him for not adjusting the game plan in attack to only 12 men. End of the day, they had more possession, less tackles, gained more meters, had more attacking sets in the opposition 20. Defensively, they were always going to be up against it because 12 on the field versus 13 is massively disadvantaged when you're defending. But you can still score tries in attack. You know, all you have to do is change what you're doing, and unfortunately, they didn't change what they're doing. The one time they did change what they were doing, Zach Lomax scored. Yes, off a Nico Hines kick, but again, it goes back to Nico Hines didn't change what he was doing, except for that one play where he changed the play and Zach Lomax managed to score. So if they had have done that earlier in the game, Nico Hines would have retained his spot because I think the game could have been a lot closer. I never thought New South Wales could win. So you bring in Mitchell Moses, who's having a blinder. He was good against the Dogs, even in a losing team the other day. A bit whingy.
And probably he was really good for the first sort of 60 or 70 minutes or so, but where the game was there to be there for the taking, he probably didn't step up to the mark, didn't get enough touches of the ball late when the game was on the line. But apart from that, his start to the game was very good. So I think he will get the nod.
Yeah, I think he actually got outplayed. Well, the Parramatta Eels actually got played by the leadership of Stephen Crichton. You know, I know we're talking about Origin, but what Stephen Crichton has done at the Bulldogs, it's not getting enough raps. You know, he's super young. I can't remember his exact age. Like, you know, he's really young. I think I read a thing where he's like the youngest captain in the NRL. He's 23 years old. First year at the Bulldogs. Come in massively underdone side. You know, beginning of the year, first few rounds, we were calling them a wooden spoon team. You know, Seroldo and obviously the team off the field have managed to turn it around. Some injuries brought in some forced changes, but Stephen Crichton's leadership was just what brought it in the end. I think, like, I saw yesterday a really good comparison of the leadership between the Bulldogs and the Eels, where on the Eels side, every time something happened, Clint Gutherson and Mitchell Moses were complaining to the ref. Arms out wide, what the hell's going on? Whereas when Bulldogs came undone and they got that sin bin, who was the sin bin late in the game?
Kurt Mann.
Yeah, Kurt Mann got sin bin late in the game. You saw Stephen Crichton, first of all, clap to to be excited, but to go. He went straight back to his team and basically like inspired them, told them like, you know, don't worry about it. We're winning. We're gonna hold it out. We're gonna win this game, and that was like massive to what I think. That's a massive contribution to what's happened over at the Bulldogs in the last few weeks.
Yeah,
Stephen Crichton is not getting enough raps for it, actually.
So that was a team that had, as you said, Kurt Mann sin binned. No Viliami kick-out, no Josh Addo-Carr.
48 disallowed tries.
Yeah. And you know what? The disallowed tries, I actually like that because it just shows, I cannot believe the number of opportunities they're creating in attack this year. This is a team that's really struggled in attack for the last 7 or 8 years, really. The number of opportunities they're now creating in attack is just staggering.
On the back of that ridiculous defence.
They've got the second best defence in the league. This was a team that had the worst defence in the league last year. They've now got the second best defence in the league.
We're catching the Panthers as well.
And the Panthers have the best defence with 200 points conceded. The Bulldogs only 211 points conceded. Their defence is nearly better than the Panthers this year. Yeah. That's what I think I made a point, might have been a podcast or two ago, where I was talking about all those close games they've lost. Well, that's the point. They've won 7 and lost 6. Their for and against is so good for a team that's 7 and 6 because they've lost so many close games. So if just half of those had gone in their favour, well, they'd be in the top 4.
And they can end this round in the top 4, possibly.
Well, they'll have the bye. They're the only team to have the bye this round.
Yeah. They need Dolphins, Raiders, and Roosters to all lose. They actually have to lose, and then they'll jump to 4th, and that is largely based on their defense because their differential is like pretty good. It's plus 81. I think it's like the 5th or 6th best, right? So yeah, if the Dolphins were to lose, then Bulldogs would be equal with them on points. Bulldogs already have a better differential than them. They don't need to gain any points to jump over them. Raiders have the worst differential in the top 8 at minus 37, so they're an easy jump. Roosters do have a much better differential because their attack is ridiculous. Best attacking team in the comp. It's, look, they've scored 386 points, but 60 of it came against the Dragons. So there is a bit of waiting there. But yeah, Bulldogs do need the Roosters to actually lose because their points differential is superior. But
I mean, there's still a long way to go. There's 7 wins, 6 losses after 13 games. I guess you're sort of thinking, well, top 8 is on the cards for the Bulldogs, absolutely. Just getting back to that Origin conversation we were having, Matt Burton's sensational for the Bulldogs against the Eels, 471 kick metres, including that 40-20. So, yeah, personally, I'd be going with him ahead of Luai in the halves. That's just my opinion, and I'd have Moses partnering Burton in the halves there. If we're turning this into an Origin selection discussion.
The only reason I wouldn't is just because, as I said, like it was, it wasn't a close game, but the New South Wales foundation, all of the other players laid that foundation for the possibility of score, of points, and unfortunately, the number one playmaker, Nico Hines, was the one that kind of did let down. I don't think New South Wales needs to make too many changes. Like, I know, look, they're not going to win the series. I have no faith that they'll win the series because they can't go to Queensland and win a series. But they can save face by winning next week, and I don't think they need to ring in a whole bunch of changes in the second game simply because of how the game went. At the beginning of the series, Luai was in no one's halves. But yeah, Nico Hines is now Mitchell Pearce 2.0. He's going to have to be in and out, in Origin, losing a bunch of series, and then come back in 10 years and win one to redeem himself. I think he's none of this his Origin career is over or anything like that. But unfortunately for Nico Hines, he just, even though he plays a lot of off the cuff football, I think there was a comment on one of our shorts the other day where we were talking about actually it was with Piercy where we were talking about how structured halves are now, and somebody actually commented you guys probably obviously haven't heard of Nico Hines. Because Nico Hines does play a pretty unstructured kind of brand of football, but in Origin, he just seemed to stick to the structure. And that's Nico Hines' downfall right now. In those big games, in those big moments, he isn't confident enough, I guess, to play how he would normally play. The whole game was relying on him to do something, and he just went for that 13-on-13 kick to the corners, keep him down, defend it out, that kind of thing, where he should have been doing all that stuff that no one expects. So I think this game is too pivotal for him to continue this year.
Yeah, and I know you've been unfortunate. I know you've been trying to get Craig Gower back on the podcast, one of our ambassadors. Hopefully we'll get him back on soon. But I was keen to ask him just after that first Origin game. I was sort of keen to ask him or Mitchell Pearce or both. Keen to ask them, what impact does it have on a team having a player sent off so early in the game? Does that mean that, let's say fatigue sets in for the players usually when it's 13-on-13, fatigue might set in the last 10 minutes. Well, if you've got 12 for pretty much the whole game, does that mean fatigue sets in after 60 minutes? Does it set in earlier? I'd be keen, because I know it seems like an obvious point to make, right? Oh, they're down a player for pretty much the whole game. That's a huge disadvantage. But I'd be keen to sort of get to more specifics on that point with Craig Gower or Mitchell Pearce to ask them, you lose a player that early, well, what sort of impact does that have on the 12 who are left there? I'd be really interested in the specifics of that.
Because, fatigue is when those guys like Nico Hines are meant to kick off. They're meant to, because the little guys don't make a million tackles and stuff like that.
And that's another point to make, isn't it? That's another flow-on effect of having 12 players. Your players are more fatigued, so your Nico Hineses can't, cause real problems for the Queensland defence, or it makes it harder for them too.
The Suoli'i send-off, or any game of rugby league, send-off after 7 minutes ends the game for the team that gets their players sent off. The game is over for them.
I know we disagreed on that, but my attitude to that is, I blame Joseph Suoli'i for making 100% getting himself sent off.
He shouldn't have got sent off, and that was the thing. It's whether you agree or disagree on whether it was a sin bin or not, or I mean a send-off or not, no team is ever going to win 12,
Yeah,
12 or 13
that's the thing.
for 70 minutes.
Whether you agree with the decision to send him off or not, I mean, you can still talk about the impact that having 12 has on a team.
I can't imagine how much more tired they would have been. But in the end, Queensland made more tackles.
I guess that's a real. That's where the viewpoint of the ex-players is very interesting. That's where I'd love to get their insight on that. Well, I'm sure over their long careers, Craig Gower and Mitchell Pearce played in teams that had players sent off.
Mitchell Pearce played for the Roosters.
Yeah, I'm sure at some point they played in a team that had a player sent off early in the game. And I'd just be very interested to hear, apart from the obvious of having one less player for the whole game, well, what are the specifics? What sort of falls apart in that scenario that wouldn't usually fall apart if it was a 13 or 13 game? But anyway, I was going to talk just a bit about the fullback spot as well. With this Edwards.
Edwards is
Tedesco.
going to come in.
Well, it makes sense now. I mean, they lost the first game. I think they had to win, and Tedesco had to play pretty well to keep his spot because Edwards was picked originally.
Teddy didn't play badly or anything like that, but to me, it's kind of like a situation where even at club football, you have your top 17, and you got your superstar, best in the world player who gets injured. And then a young, well, in this case, an old, guy comes in to fill in and plays pretty good, and you get even when your team is winning, and your first choice comes back. So what do? You take him out. Earlier in the year, Reece Walsh got injured for the Broncos, right? And Tristan Saylor came in and covered him, I think it was. Yeah, it was Tristan Saylor came in and covered him. Played really well. They won some games. He didn't do anything too bad. But Reece Walsh came back and, of course, he got his spot back immediately. And I know this Dylan Edwards hasn't played, but he was the first choice. He was in camp. He was in camp. And he was, unfortunately, had that calf strain. So you'd have to say, Teddy will get dropped just simply because of that. Not because he had a bad game or his form is down or the Roosters are playing badly or anything. Dylan Edwards is simply in better form, currently a better fullback, and is the first choice.
Yeah. I think it was always going to be the way that if New South Wales lost the first game and Edwards was fit for game 2, that Edwards was going to come back in 100%. For Tedesco.
The only way Tedesco would have retained his spot is if he had had a man of the match performance. That was the only.
Or either that or they won and he played really well.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about if they had dominated 48-0, James Tedesco doesn't necessarily need to keep his spot because he was still the second choice. But they're not going to change teams.
Yeah, I
know, but he doesn't need to keep his spot. Is what I'm saying. They're not going to change. They'll never change the team that wins. Queensland aren't going to change their team. No, they're going to have Cobbo on the bench.
That's just the way it rolls with State of Origin. You win, you keep the same team. You lose, you make changes. That's just the way it goes.
But like I said, I liken it to club football. Your number one choice is coming back from injury, so he's got to be back. He's named this week. He's named at number 1 this week. Yeah,
Edwards. Yeah. Yes.
He's not named on an extended bench or anything like that. He's actually named to play fullback.
Yep, he's named at fullback.
Yep, so he's definitely playing. It's not going to be a late notice withdrawal. He's going to carve up the Knights, get his spot back.
I think he's just got to get through. Well, he'll just, as long as he gets through the game unscathed, I think he's a certainty to be selected. Interestingly as well, just back on Latrell Mitchell and Michael Maguire, I think they're actually going to run into each other the day before the team's picked at a Rabbitohs 10-year premiership reunion, which is an interesting little side note here. So that, I mean, I read some reports saying, that could be an opportunity for them to clear the air ahead of the team being picked. I would have thought you'd want to be sort of...
What air do they have to clear?
Oh, well, apparently they had a conversation before the team was picked for game 1. And I think Maguire got the sense that Latrell Mitchell wasn't overly keen to be part of the Blues team, and so Latrell Mitchell wasn't selected. Latrell Mitchell said that he was more keen to sort of, because he'd had such a horror start to the season, he was more keen to focus on getting back into some good form for the Rabbitohs before he worried about State of Origin. And I think maybe Maguire just took away from that. Well, he's not crying out to be picked for the Blues here. So But I just sort of read that report and thought, well, look, I don't think, surely it's not going to be about whether they run into each other at a reunion, whether he gets picked or not.
Maguire obviously has his phone number.
Yeah. I don't think you'll go, oh yeah, I might. That reunion's on the day before. I might make sure I might speak to Latrell and see if he wants to play in game 2.
We know now Latrell wants to play, and we know he's coming into form, and whatever Ben Hornby's done over there to make him actually play properly.
Yeah. And I don't think Latrell needs. I mean, obviously, I've been a big critic of Latrell, but I don't think that he needs to make clear that he wants to play for the Blues all the time. He's just got to be playing well for South.
Yeah,
if he's
exactly.
playing well for South, and he's in the frame for selection, well, he should be picked. He shouldn't have to make it clear that he's
such a weird thing. Like, only Latrell Mitchell has to tell the world whether he wants to.
Well, not any other player has to
only
do that.
Latrell Mitchell.
I would say that in his defence.
That's nothing to do with Latrell as well. For the first time ever, we're not saying it's about Latrell. It's just like the media seems to think that Latrell Mitchell needs to make it clear that he wants to play or not, and it's always a story before the game whether Latrell Mitchell wants to play Origin or not. Whether he wants to play Origin or not is irrelevant.
Yes, that's what I was just going to say. That it's irrelevant. He's either in form to be picked or he's not.
Yeah, so the news making it a story is so bizarre. It's just another thing in the Latrell Mitchell media machine, and this one has nothing to do with him.
Or anyway, I think he'll be picked.
Yeah, I think so. He'll be the replacement.
I think he has to be, especially with Tom Trebojevic and Nathan Cleary both missing from this series. I think they got no choice but to pick Latrell and to just hope that he catches fire. I think that's how it's going to go.
Yeah, it's going to be. And then I don't know if we talked about it, but when Suoli'i came off the field last week, Nate Miles had a go at him, screaming obscenities and...
enjoy your effing debut 3 times.
It's the reason why Paul Gallen punched Nate Miles in the head and got punching banned.
Initially I sort of thought, it's no big deal, it's just a bit of friendly fire, Origin rivalry. But then I thought more about it and I thought... surely a Queensland official can't be talking to... all right, you can think what you want about the tackle, and I had my thoughts on the tackle, but it's the referee's job to deal with that. The referee dealt with that by sending Suoli'i off the field. Suoli'i was just minding his own business, about to run up the tunnel, as you should in that situation. There's not really much else you can do in that situation. So it shouldn't be up to a Queensland official like Nate Miles to be screaming obscenities at Joseph Suoli'i. And Paul Gallen, which coincidentally the one you just mentioned who punched Nate Miles' lights out in the 2013 Origin series, he was saying that he thinks Nate Miles was very lucky to escape a fine, and I think he was too.
Yeah.
You've got... an official saying enjoy your effing debut to a player who's just minding his own business walking up the tunnel. As I said, think what you want about the tackle, but it was the referee's job to deal with that. The referee dealt with it.
I can't think of any conceivable reason that a opposing team official could ever have to approach an opposing team player in any way, positive or negative. Well, you can go over and say, like, oh, fuck, sorry, man, like, whatever, like, if an injury happens or whatever, but I can't think of any reason why one of the opposing team's coaching staff or whatever, I don't know what his actual job is, probably just to hang around.
Sorry, he's the assistant coach, I should say.
Probably just to hang around and lead with the head.
Yeah, Nat Miles is the Queensland assistant coach.
There's no reason at all that any opposing team coaching staff member should approach the opposing team's players and say anything, let alone to abuse a young player.
Put it this way, I think if Queensland players had said that to Suoli'i as he was running off, I think fair enough.
Yeah, exactly.
The bloke's just hit one of your teammates, and you're angry about it, and you swear at him, and you're a player. Yeah, go for it. But an assistant coach, the Queensland assistant coach, Nate Miles, no.
He should have been fined.
Give me a break.
Ricky Stewart
should have been fined.
Ricky Stewart got fined and suspended for calling Jamin Salmon a weak-gutted dog or whatever it was. The weirdest.
That was a bizarre insult.
Weirdest insult ever, and it's now become a meme. But Nate Miles should have been suspended as well. Like, there's absolutely no conceivable reason why he should. Any coach in any sport should approach and abuse an opposing team's player. Never. You set the example.
Yeah.
You know, and so Nate
and
Miles,
that's where the game loses me sometimes. Just that they arc up about every PC cause possible, but yet something like that so blatant from an assistant coach, where clearly it's not his place to be making those comments, and they just take no action on it. It's
my understanding is Suwali didn't react in any way, and Nate Miles continued and repeated it a few times.
Yeah, it was 3 times he said it, according to the Daily Telegraph.
So he was seeking a reaction as well. Like that's why to me it's even worse. It's bad enough that he went up to him and swore at him, but to keep repeating it, trying to provoke a reaction. Like what was his intention there? Oh, I said something and he didn't say anything back, so I should say it again because he wanted Suwali to react. So he was trying to provoke a reaction. There's intent. You know, we talk about accidents in tackles, and this is an accidental thing, and that's accidental. That is intentional.
Yeah. Suwali copped his punishment. He was sent off from the game, and now he's going to serve a suspension.
Yeah.
And that's where it should be left. It shouldn't be up to assistant coaches at Queensland like Nate Miles to weigh in like that.
What a bully. I don't have much time for Nate Miles. I never did as a player either. Like I before Paul Gallen punched him, I was always like, he's out there leading with his head. That's so dangerous. They do it in NFL and they wear helmets and they still get concussions. And he had like that giant, massive unit of a head, and he'd run it into players. It's really, really bad for other players. I always hated it. I hated his tackling style. I thought like it's a really intentional thing. And when people started pointing it out, he didn't do anything about it. So yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, he was part of that posse of Roosters players who were signed from the Bulldogs, like Willie Mason, Marco Mealy, Braithen Astor, Sonny Bill Williams. The list goes on and on. But anyway, digress.
And so then the NRL is considering moving Origin to Monday nights, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. It's because of the turnaround.
Yeah.
I know, like we discussed it the other day, Matt Burton wasn't allowed to play even though he had 5 days rest, but Ben Hunt was allowed to play after 3 days rest or 2 days rest.
That's why it made no sense to not let Burton play, because as you said, that players after Origin are allowed to back up after just a few days, but you can't play a game 5 days before.
That's the real reason they're doing it. You know, like they are saying they're doing it because of the allowing players to rest more before backing up, but it is also to alleviate that point that has popped up everywhere that Matt Burton had a 5 or 6 day period between when the Bulldogs played.
It was Friday night. He missed that game against the Knights, which was that Friday night game, and he missed that State of Origin game on the Wednesday.
Well, he didn't miss it. He got to wear a jersey and sit on the bench for 80 minutes.
I mean, it did freshen him up for that good game he had against the Eels.
But I mean, like, everybody's pointed out that it was a 5 day period where he could have... Yeah, there was a 5 day period before the match, and yet... Well, even then, he had like 10 days off or whatever it was. But Ben Hunt and so on, Zach Lomax and Jaden Searle all backed up just 2 days later. It makes no sense. And so the real reason they're doing it is to make that criticism make sense. I think that's my conspiracy theory. They're not trying to allow the players time to rest because they never have before. It's never been an issue with the resting before. It's only now become an issue where they have to move it to Monday nights since the new rule in which the 18th man is not allowed to play. Very coincidental.
Yeah, I mean, look, Darren Lockyer said he's concerned that a move to Monday night could affect the TV ratings. I don't really go along with that. I don't think anyone's going to go, if State of Origin was on Wednesday night, I'd watch it, but if it's on Monday night, I'm not going to watch it. I don't go along with that. I don't think that's much of an issue. To me, this Wednesday night, Monday night thing, it's sort of here nor there. I don't think they're looking at the real issue. The real issue for me is that the NRL competition goes on the back burner between sort of late May and pretty much the end of July. There's 6 weeks between Game 1 and Game 3, but it's not just for those 6 weeks. It's from when the team gets named for Game 1, which is a week and a half before Game 1. So that stretches the whole thing out to 7.5 weeks. and then the week after players have got to back up, so that's 8 weeks, and then you probably throw another couple of weeks on the end of that for players to sort of, I guess, find their feet again after the grueling state of origin period. So all in all, it's a 10-week hit on the NRL.
Yeah, that's going to remain.
So that's the big issue for me. That the big issue is moving it to Monday night. That's not addressing the real issue. As we said last time, you've either got to shut it down halfway through and play it 3 straight Sunday nights in a row, or you have it at the end of the season. I don't know why they're so opposed to having it at the end of the season. There's no sport on in any code in October. It'd be a free hit for Rugby League if they had State of Origin on in October. And if they did either one of those two things, if they either shut it down halfway through, have 3 straight games in June, or just play the 3 games in October after the grand final, either way they'd be getting the best of both worlds. They'd have the best of the NRL competition that wouldn't be affected, and you'd have and you'd still have your State of Origin series. At the moment, they're not getting the best of both worlds because the NRL competition's taking this huge hit for 10 weeks between late May and the end of July.
I liken it to when you have a newborn baby. Everything is crappy for 6 weeks, and then just as you're getting into your rhythm, the baby changes completely for another 6 weeks. And that's what the NRL is like. I was talking to my tipping comp about, like, first few weeks of my tipping comp was terrible. Untippable. Everything was untippable. Then I fully skyrocketed to the top of the ladder. Then Origin period comes, everything is changed. Post-Origin, I'm going to get it over the next few weeks for this 10-week period, 9-week period. Last few weeks, I'm going to get all my points back again. Post-Origin, it's all going to be broken again. So Origin has a massive effect on, you can tell, like, I know, like my personal tipping comp where I can win a few $100s is not the be-all and end-all of the NRL, but that's a good indication of how Origin, not like exactly what you're saying, it fully affects the whole game. It affects the season. It breaks the season. It messes with the ladder. There was the game many years ago, it was before when St. Wayne came to the Dragons, where the Dragons were like really low on the ladder leading up to Origin, and then they dominated Melbourne because Melbourne had 7 or 8 players missing, and Jamie Soward celebrated too much, and then the Dragons scraped into the 8 or whatever, and Melbourne punished them when they played them again, and apparently hated Jamie Soward. I think that was actually 2008. So a team can go from being really low on the ladder to getting into the 8 based on the Origin period by getting points and being lucky enough in the draw to play teams with massive amounts of players missing. Obviously, it doesn't affect Penrith, but
I just don't know why there's such a hesitation towards having Origin at the end of the season. In October, the weather would be warmer, and then you could, you'd have a nice sequence. Then you pick the Origin teams out of who was the best in the NRL season, and then after it, if you had Kangaroos Internationals, you could pick the Kangaroos team out of the Origin team and have that after the Origin, and people go, oh, but what about player welfare? That's a really long season. Like, come on, these guys are paid, $800,000, $900,000 a year, $1 million a year to play football. Like player welfare. Like, come on, your job's to play football.
The season is that long anyway. The teams that get knocked out early don't make the finals. That's the thing. Like, I hear this all the time. What about player welfare? They can't have that long a season. Season's that long anyway, actually. Yeah. It's already that long because job. They have the internationals.
A lot of people have hard jobs they're paid a tenth of what NRL players are paid.
They have 8 weeks off a year. Like, that's it. Unless they finish early and get down in the finals. Yeah. And then, there's the other thing that we talked about last week where the bottom 8 teams will be without players. And, the players will have 4 weeks rest.
Just train on squad.
But actually somebody commented on that, which isn't in our comments, which I thought was funny because it's something they did. You can have a bottom 8 knockout comp. They did that once many, many years ago. I remember Vossi and stuff talking about it where the team won a sewing machine or something ridiculous. Bottom 8 knockout comp. So, but no, we don't want a bottom 8 knockout comp. But there's many solutions. I think that's the thing. There's many solutions, and it's a lot of stuff like this is done because of tradition. You know, that's all. It's just because it's always been like that, and so that's therefore we always have to do it like that. Did COVID have lower TV ratings when they played? Did State of Origin have lower TV ratings during COVID when they played at the end of the year? No.
No, it had very good TV ratings.
Like, no. Obviously, it had worse crowd numbers.
Look,
Because
Origin's going to always have great TV ratings.
So-
you could play Origin in January and it'd have great TV
Honestly,
ratings.
there's no reason. The only reason why it's in the middle of the year is because of tradition. I get this in jiu-jitsu actually all the time. In one of the organization's competitions, you have to wear a specific type of underwear. You're not allowed to wear boxer shorts. And it's just because of tradition. It's like, some things are nonsense. Anyway, Origin team will be named on Sunday. That reminds me, I've got to follow everyone up and ask them for a Origin 2 team. So sometime can you send me an Origin 2 team before Sunday? Yeah. And I won't stitch Gowie up this time. Tell everyone that Payne Haas is out and then actually hands up playing. Only Gowie's team wasn't updated. Sorry, bro.
Just on the Origin scheduling, I just think it would, as you said, it's just tradition that's leaving it where it is. I just think if they made the change, maybe initially there'd be some hesitation, but people would adjust and get over it. And in the long run, it'd be for the benefit of the game.
Season used to be 24 weeks.
People would get used to it. If you just made the decision to go to October, I think going to October, the end of the season, is the best move. It makes the most sense to me with picking, and then you pick the test team out of the Origin teams at the end of the year. But my second preference would be shut down the competition halfway through, 3 straight weeks in June, and then resume the competition after that.
It's like it doesn't matter what they change, people will complain about it, but in the end, no one will care. It's honestly, the season used to be 24 weeks. They added an extra team. No one cared. Nobody cared. So in NRL news, though, future immortal Lachlan Garvin is actually really unhappy at the Tigers. I can't imagine why. And was heard to say in the sheds after the loss on Friday, game that I went to, he can't wait to leave. And then it's since come out that he actually has sought a release, and the Tigers are refusing it. Now, what I heard was he was originally slated to play in the back row, and they signed a bunch of back rowers. Then he was kind of like, oh, crap, what am I going to do? And then they've moved him to half, and they signed a bunch of halves. And so it's not about how bad they're going. It's about the fact that he actually feels unwanted because whenever he has a position set, they sign a bunch of external people from outside the team to replace him, basically, how he feels. And that's why he wants to leave. Now, God knows who the current CEO of the Tigers is. The Tigers management has said unequivocally they're not going to let him go because they don't want to have a Luke Brooks, James Tedesco. No, Brooksy was the last one to stay, right? Mitchell Moses, James Tedesco, Aaron Woods situation, in which they had the best players and then they let them go. I can't see why, if he doesn't want to be there, they would keep him. That's the same thing that I said with Ben Hunt. Like, if he doesn't want to be there, just let him go.
Yeah, and I mean, he started with the Tigers winning 2 of their first 3 games. But they've since lost 9 games in a row. So again, how good can he be if he's playing in a team that's lost 9 games in a row?
He's going to be in Origin and future immortal and represent Australia, and he's going to be better than Nathan Cleary.
He's only played 10 games. Like, you've got to earn your stripes. He's got a contract until the end of 2026. So his manager, Isaac Moses, it seems, is agitating for a release here. He's obviously told him to look to, kick a few stones at training, whatever. Let's try and agitate and get a release here. But there's a buyer beware here for other clubs. Well, if he's doing this to the Tigers, well, who's to say he won't do it to your club again in the future if the same scenario arises?
Yeah, well, that's sort of like there's a lot of misinformation, but yeah, my understanding is it actually doesn't have anything to do with the state of the Tigers' position on the ladder. Like that's what was originally kind of insinuated, but it's nothing like that. It's that he feels like he's the second choice, and he's only currently playing in the halves because their first choice halves are injured. He didn't get his debut or whatever. He didn't get his spot because he was picked there originally. I think he didn't play the first game. Yeah, he came in because someone got injured.
But I mean, it just Well, for me, that's again that's all the more reason why there should be a Bible where it's like, well, things don't go his way for a little while at a club, and then he starts kicking stones and looking for a release.
First round was a bye. Well, but it's the coach's job to explain to the players what their plan is for them. You know, like, and if he's feeling like no one's doing, because it's hard for anyone in any job to, like, if you're a marketing manager, right? You played from the second round. If you're a marketing manager and you one day you come to the office and your CEO is meeting with an external marketing agency, and then they come out and they say to you, oh no, we're going to go with this external marketing agency now, but you're going to become the, HR manager. And then a few weeks later you come in and they're meeting with an external HR team. Like, how are you going to feel? You're going to be like, am I even wanted here? But if the manager explains to them that it's because you're not quite ready to be our senior management, you're not quite ready to be this, what we're doing is we're giving you experience in all of the different positions and hiring people to take that so you can become a more prominent manager in a CEO or something, then you're going to go like, oh, okay, I understand now. Look, at this rate, at this point in time with the Tigers, how they are, constant stuff still coming out about them. Tigers are the leakiest ship in the entire universe. I'm really starting to doubt. I say you got to give a coach 2 years, but I'm really starting to doubt Benji Marshall's ability to do anything with the Tigers.
Yeah.
You have things like, I don't care if he goes away. So the coaches go away in the middle of the season on a bye. It's a common thing. Only they know what their team is. But to win 2 in a row, lose 10 in a row. And what they dished out against the Dragons, I ended up leaving because it was so goddamn cold in Wollongong. Oh my God, dude. Put some heaters in your stadium or something. But they were leading at half time. Yeah,
and then they just got absolutely mauled in that second half. It's just... I guess the market will determine... if he finds another club, he finds another club, but... It's just a bit, it's a bit annoying. I mean, he's contracted till the end of 2026. He's only 18 years old. He's only played 10 first-grade games. There's really a part of you here that goes, mate, you've got to earn your stripes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You've got to, see out your contract, see how you go there. All right, they're a struggling club, okay, but you've only just started as well. You've got to earn your place. And that's the other issue, is that clubs can never do a good deal with a player. If a club signs a player, lower than market value and the player plays above their market value, well, that's supposed to be to the club's advantage because they're paying a player under their market value. That's just good salary cap management. But then this is the issue. Once the player realises they've got higher market value than what they're being paid, their manager tells them to kick a few stones at training, agitate, try and get a release. So it's not fair on the clubs. They've signed the contract. Then again, it is a two-way street. I mean, there are obviously examples of clubs trying to get rid of players who are on too much money.
Clubs can get rid of players much easier than players can leave clubs.
Yeah.
So, I think Ryan Madison is a good example of guys who just change clubs willy-nilly, but I think that guy's stuck where he is now. After the stuff like taking a suspension instead of a fine, things like that. But, I think it needs to be more fair where, because a club can say to a player, you're not wanted, go find somewhere else and we'll let you. All blessing, okay? And if the player doesn't go and find somewhere else, the club can go, well, you're not going to play first grade. Mm. You're going to play in lower grades. It's going to ruin your career, right? Whereas a player can't go to a club and go, well, they can go I want out. And then the club can just say, not too bad. And if you don't like it, you're going to go play in the reserve grades and I'm going to ruin your career. It's both sides, both ways are in the way to the club. I don't know, nobody knows the real truth about Lachlan Garvin or why he wants to leave, but cracks are really starting to re-emerge at the Tigers. Big cracks. And
this, I've heard some people saying, And Brent Reid on NRL 360, I mean, he just defends Shane Richardson at every opportunity. It's just... I've heard some people saying, people talking about, the Tigers are going better this year.
No, they're going worse. No, so much worse.
They've lost 9 in a row.
They're so much worse.
I think they're worse this year than
they were last year.
Are. If you can believe that.
It's not in any now they're back to the 17th. You know, they're back to last on the ladder. The only reason they weren't last on the ladder is because the Rabbitohs were so poor. Not because the Tigers were better than the Tigers were better than the Rabbitohs, but only because the Rabbitohs were so poor. The Rabbitohs were setting such a low standard, absolutely abysmal. Not a first-grade team, not trying, change of coach, immediately turn around. The Titans were lower than them because they were also so poor. Coaching turned them around. West Tigers are now back to where they belong. Yeah. You know, and
I'm a fan of Jerome Luai, and I think he cops a raw deal. Even though I did say he should be replaced in the Origin team, I am generally a fan of his. He has won the last 3 premierships straight, playing in the halves. But you just think they're going to need a lot more than that next year. That's not going to be enough for the West Tigers.
They got those 2 brothers.
But
at
this point, you just can't see this Benji Marshall coaching situation working out for the Tigers at all.
At this time last year, and keeping in mind it's 17 teams last year, 17 teams this year, so it's no difference, right? This time last year, Tigers were 16th and they'd won 3. Dragons were the ones on the bottom of the ladder. So they are actually worse. They're going worse. You know, round 14 last year, they were going better.
And it's not just the losses, it's the way they're losing as well. They just got obliterated by the Dragons, falling apart in that second half. With the Galvin situation, I think it's possible that... Are they looking at what's happened with Ben Hunt at the Dragons? I mean, Ben Hunt wanted out. We thought there was no chance that he would stay. Shane Flanagan put the foot down, kept him, and now Ben Hunt's flying and the Dragons are going, well, are the Tigers hoping that the same thing happens with Galvin here?
That'll come down to the coach. Ben Hunt is now going to be re-signed until 2026. He's getting an extra year as well. So I think it's a completely different situation because that comes down to the coach. But it could be that they're thinking like that. And if they are, it's stupid because Benji Marshall isn't Shane Flanagan. You know?
And look, Lachlan Galvin isn't Ben Hunt.
Yeah, I mean, no one's going to go and buy Lachlan Galvin for $1 million. They're going to buy him and put him as a second choice half. The fact of the matter is, we talked about it at length, there's not that many superstar halves in the league, and Lachlan Galvin is not, despite what people thought 8 weeks ago when he was like a future immortal, greatest half ever. We don't need Jerome Luai anymore because we got Galvin.
How ridiculous does that look now?
He's a second choice half at the worst team in the comp. So it's not like he's going to walk out and get $1 million. But yeah, like we'll see how it goes. Benji Marshall's got to do something, and the Tigers have to do something because what you're seeing now is they're getting worse, and what he's doing isn't working, and they can't sit there and wait till next year. You know.
And I heard that was a good point that was made, was that the problem with and again, I agree with their decision to sign Jerome Luai. I think they had no choice but to sign him. You're never going to get Cleary away from Penrith or DCE away from Manly or Munster away from Melbourne. You can only sign who's available. Jerome Luai was their best option at the time. I think they had to go that way. But, it's just... I'm really worried about where they're heading.
Yeah, I think they need to they need to do something. Like really, and then he's not. As I said, the cracks are starting to re-emerge. So I just got to reply to this urgent message. Terrible TV going on right now. Cracks are starting to re-emerge. Tigers are historically terrible, and they were getting better with a bunch of patches and stuff like that. And we thought, we'll see some improvement, but they're getting worse now. So cracks are coming back, and they're much worse than they were. Over at the Roosters, though, when I saw Brandon Smith did something bad, I thought, oh, Koki Smith's gone again. Like, I thought it was something actually bad.
Yeah.
And he's been dry. He missed a player meeting the day after they played. And because their typical week is the day after they play, they have the day off.
Yeah.
And as he said, he's taken full responsibility for it. He said, like, I should have set my alarm and I should have checked the schedule. Like, that was it. But I didn't. I just assumed. And from now on, I'll check the schedule and set my alarm. So they've dropped him for this week. Who are they playing?
Parramatta.
Oh, they better be wary of Mitchell Moses. I'm trying to win his Origin jersey back. But yeah, so he missed a player meeting, and nobody could contact him because he was asleep. Was he sleeping off a bender?
Yeah, he's on $800,000 a year. There's just always seems to be something. Just something a bit off with Brandon Smith. Just some. They're never, it's never a huge deal, but there's always just some little misdemeanor like this. Yeah. And I'm starting to get to a point where, if I'm the Roosters, I'm just starting to think, is this guy more trouble than he's really worth? Again, since he's been at the club, I think they've gone through a period of underachieving. He was a star signing. With the roster that they have, they've been underachieving for a number of years now, or pretty much since they won their last premiership back in 2019. I'm starting to get a bit over the circus around Brandon Smith. I think he needs to shape up. He needs to commit to the Roosters and commit properly. And I wouldn't blame them if they're starting to look at other options, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I don't know when he finishes his current contract, but he's 28 years old. Like, he's getting on in years. So if he's looking for another contract, he's got to what is it called? He's got to really shape up.
He took up an option in his contract to remain at the Roosters in 2025 earlier this year. But they may, they might decide to cut him loose the way it's going.
He was also involved in that silly nonsense in May that he was on a live stream with Terrell May, Zach Docker-Clay, Nafahu White and Spencer Leniu, where people on the internet said they were all off their nut on cocaine. So, there's always something little with him. I totally agree with you. I thought, since he was at Melbourne, I thought that's what, if he was so good, that's why Melbourne let him go. If he was so good, Melbourne still let him go. Melbourne doesn't let go of high-quality players unless they really have to. I know they had Harry Grant there, but...
That's the thing. Craig Bellamy, of all the coaches, Craig Bellamy, I think, is the best at getting the most out of players and turning, middle-of-the-road players into very good players and very good players into great players. But, if he's letting Brandon Smith go, well, what does that say? This is the coach who gets the best out of all his players and sets very high standards and expects his players to meet those standards. To be honest, I think the Roosters are another one of those clubs. They're another club where you go, well, the Roosters have let this player go. Well, why has that happened? And so if he's let go by the Storm and the Roosters, I think there's some real red flags around Brandon Smith for the next club he signs. You'll get someone who'll take him. There'll be some sucker buyer who won't be able to help themselves. Possibly. Or
they got Happy Carousel. Tigers aren't going to take him.
But I think somebody will. But they're going to have to be very wary, I would have thought.
But, he's done all the promises. I'm going to be better now. I need to grow up, etc., etc. But we'll see what happens in 3 to 6 weeks. Something else will happen. So 4 Las Vegas teams. They've all come back. Who were they? They were the Rabbitohs?
Yeah, so the Rabbitohs, the Broncos, the Sea Eagles and the Roosters.
Are the Eagles out of the 8? They are. They're out of the 8 right now. Oh, my God.
Yeah, so obviously South have been the biggest underachievers of that group of teams. They've won 3 games all season, and they're in 16th position. Manly 3 spots out of the 8. The Roosters going okay, but again, probably underachieving for the roster they got. And the Broncos, they're coming 8th at the moment. And they made the grand final last year. So all 4 clubs who played in Las Vegas in the first round, you could argue, are just not living up to their potential this year. And so I think question marks around that Vegas jaunt that they all had at the start of the season, I think those question marks are valid. They
all have extenuating circumstances, which you can just chuck onto the Las Vegas thing. So the Broncos have had a spate of really severe injuries. They did lose a whole bunch of players last year. Roosters have had controversies. Seagulls have had injuries to the one player that makes them win all the time, and the Rabbitohs have had Latrell Mitchell not performing. But they just compounds on top of the Vegas thing now. It's first year. Can't take anything away from first year. But, their current position reflects how they started the year. We're halfway through the season now. Their current position reflects how they started the year. Sea Eagles went pretty well for a few weeks and then died. Roosters were up and down. Rabbitohs were terrible. And the Broncos have not gone anywhere near where they were going last year. So it's a fair point.
Yeah, and it's something that teams that, I know a lot of clubs have been keen to take that Vegas trip. There's a lot of clubs keen to do it next year. But it's something they're going to have to be very wary of. I mean, it's a real issue. Is it really worth going to Vegas if it has this sort of an impact on your season? Again, we're not really sure. We're just sort of theorising here. You'd probably need to wait, 3 or 4 seasons and have a look at it then. If there's a real trend of those Vegas teams, performing below expectations once they get back, then there'd really be something in it. It's probably going off one season. It's a bit early, but certainly something to be cautious of.
Definitely. Everyone wants to go next year. Everybody wants to go. It's hard I think it's kind of hard for them to book teams in because somebody has to go for the World Club Challenge. So you don't know who's going to... Well, obviously the Tigers aren't going to win, so they could be booked in to go.
Well, I mean, the risk in it is that it's just an entirely new concept that 4 teams would go over to Las Vegas and play the first game and then come back and just be forced to go into the season as normal. That can't be an easy thing to do. You're coming off a full off-season, you fly over to America, play one game, then you fly back and you got to start your season in Australia. I don't think that's an easy thing to do. That can't be an easy thing to do.
No, definitely not. We'll have to see what happens next year. I don't want the Dragons to go because unless I can go to Vegas, I don't want them to go.
That's the thing. If you're a club and you don't need, obviously there'd be financial advantages in it for clubs, but if you don't need the financial advantage of it, is it really worth risking your form coming back after that sort of a holiday, really, for your first round game? Yeah, I'm not sure that it is, but again, we'd need to wait a few seasons before we could really pin the Vegas game on that, I would have thought.
Yeah, well, that's it. We've got to see the experiment. We have 1 year's worth of data, but it is like a thing. Look at... Like I said, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances to each one, a lot of additional excuses, but it's coincidental that those 4 clubs you'd have to say are the 4 clubs that are underperforming the most out of all of the teams.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. It can't. It's a long flight over there, a flight back. You got to acclimatise. You got to come back here, readjust, and then get straight into a season. I think there's probably a lot more to this than maybe a lot of people would have thought about.
I think so. Why are the Roosters paying $6 to win the premiership? So I'm just looking at the ladder. The Roosters are currently third favourites. I'm
not sure. To be honest, I'm not. Sometimes I think those odds are not up to date. I think you got to go to their website to check those.
So over to the Knights, another team that everyone thinks is underperforming, but I actually think is performing exactly as you would expect them to.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think they're going that badly, the Knights. I know 13th doesn't sound too good, but I think their ladder position's a bit misleading. They're 6 wins and 7 losses.
Yeah, they're only 1 win behind all the teams in the bottom of the
Yeah. So I think that to look at it and go, they're 13th, I think that's misleading. They're not that bad because they're 6 wins, 7 losses, and if you get back to parity, same wins as you have losses, well, you're a chance of making the 8. And they've done it without Kalen Ponga as well. for much of the season.
But Andrew Johns wants...
all things considered, they're not travelling too badly, although they have lost 2 in a row.
Andrew Johns wants some young half to be debuted because...
Yeah, Will Price.
The halves at the Knights aren't going very well. Willie Mason's nemesis, the Knights halves.
Jack Cogger, yeah.
So there's Jack Cogger, Tyson Gamble and Jackson Hastings are the 3 potential, their main halves. And apparently Andrew Johns has, said vocally that old mate Will Price should debut. And Adam O'Brien mentioned it in a press conference after the game the other day. And Matty Johns has backed up Andrew Johns.
Cogger and Hastings have been named in the halves for that game against the Panthers on Sunday. Price has been included on the reserves list, though.
They're going to get smashed.
They will either way. But, Price has been named on the reserves list, so he may get that late call-up for this game. So Andrew Johns might get his wish. But you mentioned Matty Johns has backed up Andrew Johns. Just because he's an immortal, it doesn't mean he's right about everything. He's not a team selector. Adam O'Brien obviously had his reasons for not selecting Price. And, the coaching team, they're working there 24/7. Obviously they're aware that he's an option. They're having a look at him all the time. They're doing their homework on him. And look, Adam O'Brien was just pointing out that, maybe Joey hasn't watched much New South Wales Cup. And to be honest, I think Andrew Johns is probably the type who wouldn't watch a lot of New South Wales Cup. He strikes me as the type who would probably have better things to do than watch New South Wales Cup games. That's the sort of personality type I think Andrew Johns is. If you took someone like a Billy Slater, the Queensland coach, or someone like Cooper Cronk, who's now an analyst with Fox League, I think those are 2 types of people they're the types who would watch a lot of the lower grades. They really do their homework on a lot of players, watching a lot of lower grades. But I could just see Andrew Johns being the type who just wouldn't watch much of the lower grades. I get that impression.
My understanding is he attends a lot of the games. But the Knights are going terribly in the New South Wales Cups. They're like 13th or 11th or something on the ladder.
And if Adam O'Brien's saying that, he's not putting consistent form together in the New South Wales Cup, he's doing his homework on that. He's aware of that.
He has to know.
I'm sure a big part of his job is having a close look at the lower grades, looking at, who might potentially be in line for a call-up to the NRL side.
But Andrew Johns was also earlier in the year on the coaching staff of the Knights. And he's no longer, apparently.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. So are they... I know Matty Johns was backing up Andrew Johns, but... So is it a case of, Andrew Johns says he should get picked, so they have to just, bend over backwards to whatever Joey says and just pick whoever he says they should pick? Is that what they're supposed to do, Is it that simple? Is it, Andrew Johns says he should get picked, so let's pick him, Again, just because he's an immortal, obviously arguably the greatest player of all time, it doesn't mean that he's right about everything.
Yeah, he's always looking for answers to the Knights' woes, which is just a common thing every year. Andrew Johns looking for answers to the Knights' woes because the Knights continue to disappoint. The Knights rely entirely on Kalen Ponga, and that's it. The woes that he should be talking about actually are, how do we fix this issue where we rely entirely on Kalen Ponga? If Kalen Ponga's out, then we don't go well. But they're sitting 1 win out of the 8.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of the ladder is super close. Okay, there is 1, 2, 3. The ladder is super weird. Okay, so where is it? 1, 2, 3 teams that are on 6 wins. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that are on 7 wins. So out of the 17 teams, 10 of them are 1 win difference, So it's only really the Eels, the Titans, the Rabbitohs, and the Tigers that aren't in that middle of the road fighting to be in the top 8 kind of thing. Yeah. And the teams that are on 7 wins are as high as 4th.
Yeah.
The only reason the Dolphins and the Raiders are actually 4th and 5th is because not only are they on 7 wins, they both had 2 byes.
Yeah.
So they have extra points that other teams don't have the benefit of.
The Knights, they were terrible against the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago, lost by 30,
awful.
but they bounced back against the Storm, only lost by 8 to a team of the calibre of the Storm. And before that, they won 1, 2, 3,
I think it was
4 games in a row. So they
4.
won 4 games in a row, and they've only dropped their last 2. And this is a team without Kalen Ponga. I actually think that they're going okay.
Well, they're going a lot better than I thought they would. But
Yeah.
Andrew Johns often does that as well. People got to remember, like, as soon as like they lose 2 in a row, he looks for answers to their woes.
And this is the other thing, like, because he was such a great player, again, an immortal of the game, the 8th immortal. The problem sometimes with people who are that great at what they do is they think that everything should come as easily to everybody else as it comes to them, and it doesn't. Not every player is Andrew Johns. And mate, is he looking at things through his lens, going, "Oh, why can't this player do this or that?" Well, Joey, unfortunately, not everyone's as good as you.
One of the things I always found funny about Andrew Johns is he used to. I don't know. I know he did for the Knights. Consult and be a halves coach for a lot of teams at the same time, and all those teams were always going really badly. It's one of the things. Like whatever team he was at, the teams would go really badly. Halves would be okay, but the team would go really badly. And then you had on the flip side, Matty Johns would be a halves coach at like the Melbourne Storm, and that'd be the best team in the comp.
Yeah.
So
I think Matty's assistant coaching record's a bit better than Joey's assistant coaching.
Like whatever Andrew, like I think like because Andrew Johns is so well loved in Newcastle, you're better off doing that. It's a marketing thing. Take all feedback on board, thank the person for it, and then do what you want and and then let them know that you appreciate their feedback, but you've decided to go in another way. You can't criticize Andrew John's opinion like Adam O'Brien's response is bad, so he's always going to get in trouble for that.
He maybe could have worded it a bit better, like to say, I don't know how many New South Wales Cup games he watches. The way that he should have said it would be, look, Andrew Johns is a great of this club. He's entitled to his opinion. However, I decided to go this way because of this. Yeah, that's how you should say it.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, so he's. And it's just because it's Andrew Johns. He's got a stand named after him. So the entire world is going to, like... If you say anything bad about Joey, the entire world's going to be against you.
Obviously, as an immortal of the game, obviously his opinion on the game is going to carry a lot more weight than most other people's opinion on the game. And that's just a fact of life.
It's just funny, man. Like, I always thought it's so funny. Every team he coached at went really badly. Is it his fault? I don't know.
That's what sometimes the great players, sometimes it doesn't translate into coaching. I mean, look at Benji Marshall at the moment. Yeah, great player. Look how he's going as a coach.
He's terrible at his coach. Last thing on Rugby League, why is Gordon Tallis talking about Michael Checker? Michael Checker said he wanted to coach Souths.
Because Michael Checker has been linked to the Parramatta Eels coaching job.
Yeah, he wanted to coach South. He was one of the people that said he'd
and he's now been linked to the Parramatta job as well.
I wouldn't take him. Has he ever coached Rugby League before?
Yes, he coached Lebanon for 6 games.
Yeah, I wouldn't... It's Ted Lasso moment there, man. Like, go get us NFL, gridiron coach to coach soccer. Like, why is Michael Checker constantly... Well, I know he needs a job, right? He needs a job. But why does he keep trying to coach rugby league teams? Yeah, look,
it would be an out there solution for the Eels to go down that path. What I would say, though, is Buzz Rothfield said, Parramatta can't afford to take a risk. And I didn't really understand that. I mean, this is a club that hasn't won a premiership since 1986. I would have thought maybe they need to start taking some more risks in order to get that premiership that's proved so elusive for them for nearly 4 decades now. I would have thought that's a time where you need to take more risks. Playing it safe doesn't win you a premiership. Playing it safe doesn't end end your premiership drought. Like Buzz Rothfield said, they need to play finals next year. Again, my point about the top 8 is if you're only going to scrape in and just get there for the sake of getting there and not do anything once you get there, what's the point? You're better off doing a proper rebuild, giving yourself a proper chance at having a real go at the premiership, rather than just scraping into the 8 and going out very quickly and just sort of masquerading as a team that's doing well that's not really doing well.
They shouldn't get Michael Checker. It's bizarre.
All right, that may be true, but that said, I don't think that taking no risks is the.
No, well, they need.
You know what I mean? I think they maybe they need to.
You know
start
who they
taking
should hire?
risks.
I got a really good idea for them to hire.
What, the Walker brothers?
Brad Arthur. To be honest, I think that's their best choice for a coach. Because his record speaks for itself. He made a grand final 2 years ago.
How harsh is it that someone who made a grand final, less than 2 years ago, it was October 2022.
Yeah, made a grand final a year and a half ago.
A year and a half ago makes a grand final and he doesn't have a job less than 2 years later. It's staggering. Yes, it's unbelievable.
Yes, didn't perform well last year, but this year was hit by the worst injury crisis where his 3 best players were off the field for most of the year. As soon as they get back, they start winning and playing well.
Like this idea that that they're not in a position to take a risk. Which team wins a premiership without taking risks? You have to take risks. You have to take risks to win premierships.
Melbourne Storm when they were cheating. Well, they were taking the risk of cheating. Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day, and I did hear. It was I can't give name, but they were telling me that there was a lot to it. The Brad Arthur sacking that there's been like hushed under the carpet kind of thing where he'd actually lost the players. The players didn't want to play for him. It was a major contributor to Reid Marnie leaving because Brad Arthur doesn't want any creativity from his dummy half, and only wants a ball feeder. And that was one of the major reasons Reid Marnie left, because he wasn't allowed to play. And then it continued on through the last couple of years.
And this is the annoying thing, isn't it? That they always pin it on the coach. It's always the coach's fault. Well, maybe it's on the players. Again, this is a club that's had very little success over a very long period of time. And Brad Arthur got them to a grand final, which is as good as any other Parramatta coach has done since 1986 when they last won the premiership.
Yeah, well, there's no Jack Gibson, Parramatta, still living in the 80s. That's it for NRL this week. There is the cricket going on. Australia is into the Super 8s after winning Namibia, so they've won 3 for 3, yeah?
Yeah, so Australia beat Namibia by 9 wickets. They beat Oman by 39 runs in that opener and in their first game, and they beat England by 36 runs as well.
England is about to get knocked out. Australia can technically knock England out of the tournament.
Well, there's one game to come in the group stage against Scotland for Australia, but they're already through to the Super 8.
So Scotland are beating England on net run rate. And so if Australia wanted to, they were talking about it, if they wanted to, they could play poorly and still win to ensure that Scotland keeps their current net run rate or close to it, because forcing England out of the tournament. Which would be amazing.
Well done to Adam Zampa too. Took 4 for 12 in that game against Namibia.
That T20 World Cup is so broken in Australia, to be honest. I was like, it's on Amazon Prime and there's not even any replays.
No.
So even if you...
they've made it hard for people who want to watch it.
So the nations that are most invested in cricket are having the most difficulty watching it. So even last night I was like talking to one of my friends who's fully like cricket mad, and he's like, I can't do it anymore. I don't want Amazon Prime. I can't wait. I gotta watch replays. What can I do? And I was like, sign up for a VPN. Pretend you're in America. Subscribe to like, what the hell? You may need an American credit card, but here's a website in which you can get an American Amazon gift card. Like just beyond ridiculous. So. And also, I think the format is really bodgy, like 20 teams, so it's the powerhouses, then the other 5 or 6 not-so-good teams, and then like 9
seriously,
Oman and Namibia.
Australia playing against Oman and Namibia, like, come on. Like, seriously, like, give us a break. And that, I guess that's the other side of the argument. Well, these TV networks can say, well, if you're going to throw up a Mickey Mouse joke of a tournament like that, well, why should we show it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you sort of can't blame these TV networks. But well done to Adam Zampa bringing up a century of 2020 international wickets as well. With
that's good. Well done.
With that 4 wickets against Namibia.
In other news, the French Open is finished.
Yes.
Carlos Alcaraz took the men's and Iga
Swiatek. Yeah.
That's not how it's spelled.
Yeah.
Swiatek
Yeah.
have won the men's and women's crown. So Alcaraz played. Oh God,
Alexander Zverev.
I always get Medvedev and Zverev mixed up.
Yeah, he beat Alexander Zverev in the final. Yeah,
came back from down. Yeah, he was down.
Yeah, he was down
2-1,
2-1.
Yeah,
came back and won in 5. It was 6-3, 2-6, 5-7. Lost those first. Lost sets 2 and 3, and then won sets 4 and 5, 6-1, 6-2. So for Alcaraz, he's now won the 2022 US Open, 2023 Wimbledon, and 2024 French Open titles. So he's now a 3-time major winner. He joins Andy Murray and Stan Wawrinka as 3-time major winners. The difference being that they're both pretty much done and dusted, and he's only 21 years of age. So you'd have to think 10 or more majors is definitely on the cards for Alcaraz.
Well, it follows that pattern next year. He's winning the Australian Open.
Yeah, I'd love to see that happen. Wouldn't that be a nice little sequence? Completing a career Grand Slam in 4 years, winning a different major in each year.
So cool.
That'd be good, wouldn't it? Well done to Carlos Alcaraz. As for Swiatek, maybe she might be on her path to being the female version of Rafael Nadal. She's won 4 French Opens from just 6 attempts at the tournament. She's only 23 years old, so by the end of her career, she could be a female Rafa. 4 titles already. That's her 5th major overall.
She's very good. How old is she?
She's 23.
Okay, yeah. So she's got 10, 12 more years in her. She starts getting onto the average of 2 per year. She could. Both of these people have potential to.
Yeah, Swiatek 5 majors at 23, Alcaraz 3 majors at 21. So give it another 10 years, and I think we'll be talking about these two as being all-time greats of their sport.
And then the tennis is like that kind of like 27 to 32 is your peak age. So these two haven't even hit their peak ages. So.
Yeah, well done to Carlos Alcaraz and Iga Swiatek.
Alcaraz is going to inspire Djokovic to bump that record a little bit more.
Yeah. Do you reckon he's shaking in his boots there on 24th?
Going to play till he's 50 if Alcaraz comes and starts winning too many, man.
He's 37 now.
Yeah, I know.
He's getting a bit long.
If there's one guy who can play till he's 50 and keep winning, it's him. If he's got the motivation.
I'm not writing him off yet.
If he's got the motivation, Alcaraz can be that motivation. That's it for other news. Just a quick update on the Conor McGregor thing. What's his name? Ariel Helwani reported that Conor McGregor is actually injured and the fight is off on UFC 303 and they're scrambling to find a backup plan B because, as I outlined last time, the card is pretty terrible. So they've got 17 days. It's on the 30th. Sucks. That's going to be a terrible card.
So you still think he's not going to fight again?
No, I don't think he's going to fight again. Somebody bumped into Michael Chandler and asked if the fight's still on. Michael Chandler said yes. He hasn't heard anything, so until he hears something, the fight is still on, but I think in the next couple of days. As I said the other day, there's no champions that haven't recently fought, so it's hard for them to get a championship fight. Mr. Short Notice, Sean Strickland, who's a fan favourite and will jump in at any time, fought 2 weeks ago. So even he can't, he's not allowed. So God knows what they can do. That's it for other sporting news around the world. Yep, Sunday Origin 2 teams are named, so we'll see what happens there. Social media blower-uppers, Vic Sophios, who is now overtaking the General as our number one fan. Hi, Vic. He commented a few times, and this was definitely his best one. All of them are very good, but this was the best one. It's about the bunker. We were complaining about the bunker and the.
Because you don't put all the comments in.
No. There's too many now.
Yeah.
We'll be here for 2 hours just talking about comments.
Yeah.
Impact on the game.
Yeah.
The game takes 2 hours to complete these days. 2 halves of 40 minutes and 10 minutes half time. I'm way older than you guys, and I can remember as a young kid listening to Frank Hyde on 2SM calling the game. His broadcast would start at 2:45 p.m. By 4:30-ish, he would be playing one of the songs after the match. The bunker, captain's challenge, players walking to scrums, etc. adds time to the game. Can Rugby League please stop trying to be the NFL for God's sake?
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Great point, Vic.
The whole idea of Rugby League and why it's so awesome is because it flows. It keeps going. And that's most Australian sports. We want it to keep going.
That's the thing. They've got themselves into this headspace where they think that it's all about getting the decision right at all costs. It's not. The flow of the game is a consideration as well. It's not just about getting the decision right. And that's where the NRL have missed the boat, and that's where their thinking is off in this area. And Vic makes some great points.
I think they really need to look at, just follow this thought, okay? The changes they are doing aren't going to bring people into the game.
Yeah.
But they will make people leave the game.
Yeah. You got to ask yourself one question. What's the game about? It's about entertainment. The stoppages to play, holding the play up to make decisions is not entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Middle Lala, Mitchell Pearce's number one fan, said about Origin, Klein must go. I can go. Bring in Latrell and Moses. Also, I'd make this series Luai's last. He's a bit overrated in Origin IMO, but I hope I'm wrong. My worry was our cohesion in attack, and it should have been a sin bin, I agree. 12 versus 13, New South Wales did well under the circumstances. On to the next one. Always great discussion and video, guys. Thanks for the compliment. As we've just outlined earlier today, Latrell and Moses is our picks as well.
Yeah.
I don't know about Luai, man. I think Luai, he kind of... I think Ivan Cleary may be proven right in that he is not that dominant playmaker because, as we were talking about before, Nico Hines didn't change anything. And so you have two playmakers on the field, right? What's the difference between a halfback and a 5/8, as I asked Mitchell Pearce? In today's day and age, one plays the left side of the field, one plays the right. You know, they're both basically the same. Luai didn't do anything different as well. So he wants to be a 7. He's going to the Tigers to be the 7. Unless he starts doing that, taking over, taking charge, being a 7 main playmaker. But you put Nathan Cleary in there, I think would have been a massive difference. You put Mitchell Moses in there, it would have been a massive difference. It wouldn't have had to have been like, crap, Nico's not going so well, my halfback's not going so well, so I need to step up. But at this point in time, I'd say, Luai is, without a dominant on-fire half, he's not going to do well at Origin either.
Well, with the selection of Nico Hines in Game 1... And I know New South Wales are very short on options because of, these injuries they've had, with Cleary and Moses, etc. But were they a bit guilty maybe in picking Nico Hines in thinking, were they just looking at the Dally M leaderboard and go, were they picking him off the Dally M leaderboard or were they picking him because they thought he would fit in the New South Wales structure and give New South Wales a really good chance of winning the game? And I think they may have been guilty of picking him based on the Dally M leaderboard.
I think it was the Dally M leaderboard and the Sharks' position on the ladder.
Yeah.
Sharks, but Craig Gower was the first person I saw pointed out. At the time, Sharks hadn't played anyone, and their position on the ladder was sitting pretty. They did end up beating Melbourne. It was Melbourne, but then they lost to... They were understrength, but they lost to an understrength Panthers, right?
Yeah,
and Melbourne
got hammered. Yeah,
Melbourne has taken their spot. And we're going to see over the next few weeks. So they've got the Dolphins this week. Dolphins are a bit injury prone. Actually, have a few issues with their injuries and stuff like that.
It may have been a case with Hines that they really just had no choice because there were just so few other options.
That's actually like
with the injuries.
There's still no one else except for Mitchell Moses back. It's not like there's massive amount of halves. So Sharks have got the Dolphins this week, and then the Bulldogs next week, and then the Titans, and then the Tigers, and the they don't have, they have the Bulldogs, which is actually a massively hard game, but they don't have that hard of a run. And so it's going to keep them up there.
Can you just say that again? I haven't heard that for about 8 years. The Bulldogs is a massively
hard game. What do you think the Sharks are going to do against the Bulldogs' defence? You know, and
they're the number 2 defensive team in the competition.
You look at this run.
I can't believe I'm saying that. The Bulldogs are the number 2 defensive team in the competition.
It's Dolphins by Bulldogs, Titans, Tigers by Cowboys, Rabbitohs, Titans, Knights, Dragons, Warriors, Sea Eagles. That's the end of the thing. They aren't playing. They're playing one more top 8 team for the rest of the year. So far at this point in time, everyone else is sitting outside of the 8. The Sharks have this massively easy run, and it's going to continue to make the players in the Sharks look good. And so Hines is one of those players that's benefiting from. And when you have something like that, because how the Dally M works, the best player on the field gets the 3 points, right? When the Sharks are getting to hammer low-ranked teams or teams that are performing poorly, then Nico Hines is their main man. He's going to keep getting 3 points. So the Sharks are going to get easy points as a team, and Nico Hines is going to get easy points as a team. I'm not saying they're either he's a bad player or they're a bad team, but the simple fact is it highlights a massive flaw. And yes, I do think they picked Hines, not just because of the fact that I think there was some conjecture over whether it should be Moses or Hines, because Moses was coming back, right? And then it was also like, if you remember, everybody had all of our experts had Moses and Hines in the halves. We didn't even consider Luai. So Hines was in there because of that. I think we were all a little bit fooled and we paid the price a little bit. But it was just like lucky for Hines that everyone else was injured.
With the benefit of hindsight, and I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it's easy to be a hindsight hero. But yeah, I think they would have been better served with Matt Burton in the halves in game 1 than they were with Hines.
Well, I don't think it could possibly have been Luai and Burton. You know, that's not a halves combination you want in that situation. I mean, like, what's Luai and Burton going to do? That any different to what Hines?
I guess you'd probably go in that scenario. You may have gone with Burton over Luai, and you go Burton and Hines.
Yeah, I think you'd end up with the same result in that situation. But
I mean, again, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, but personally, I think
if
the way Burton's playing at the moment, I think he's a better option than both Hines and
I think
Luai.
if it had been Moses and Burton in the halves, if Moses had been fit, the score would have been less bad because they still would have lost.
I'm not saying the result would have changed.
Yeah, but they still would have lost. But I conjecture what if and put it in a multiverse situation. I think the New South Wales would have just simply scored more points. Last one, this is your story. Hi, this is your story, who's commented a few times on State of Origin as well, because that's all we're going to be talking about for the next 10 weeks and probably for the rest of the year. Yeah. Do you think they should bring in Latrell? He has the X factor and may like the challenge, and then put Walker in too. Yes to Latrell, no to Walker.
Agree.
Walker hasn't done anything. Latrell, go watch that Titans game. I was interested, curious. Because
that was one of those games where you couldn't help but tune in. It had this...
Yeah, because Latrell did his cryptic social media post, and New South Wales got beat up, and
you got interest in Des Hasler at the Titans, and Souths are a fascinating story this year. Such an underachieving season, you sort of couldn't look away from that Titans rubber.
And the thing with it is, right, Sharks have played other bad teams this year, and Latrell Mitchell didn't stand up and do what he did to the Titans. Was phenomenal, they've had some difficult runs and stuff like that, but what he did to the Titans, that's the Latrell Mitchell that you want in Origin. So yeah, I think Latrell, definitely not Walker though.
Yeah, if State of Origin was a 26-game season, I wouldn't pick Latrell. Yeah. Given that it's only one game he's being picked for, I'd take the risk on him.
That's it for this week. In housekeeping, don't forget to sign up to the SmartB app. To get all of your daily updates. We do have a new competition, which is a weekly thing. Mitchell Pearce recorded a bunch of trivia questions, so each week on social media we'll post a trivia question. If you answer the question right and tag a friend, you get one entry, and you can enter as many times as you want, and you get 2 general admission tickets to any regular season game in any sport in Australia, subject to availability, terms and conditions apply, blah, 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 blah.
Pretty good prize, that one.
I reckon so. So I think the first one went up last night, but then I checked it and the answers were wrong. I spoke to the marketing department already, and the new one is going up today or tomorrow. But yeah, so watch out for that competition. As I said, it's cool because it's any regular season game in any sporting code in any location in Australia. The winners will be notified via Instagram, and then you just say, I want tickets to, I don't know, like... I don't know. I was going to say 2 netball teams, but I realised I don't know any netball teams. And you got one year
Swifts
versus the Opals?
The Firebirds?
Firebirds?
The Adelaide Firebirds?
I don't know. You could go to a BBL game. You could go to a soccer game. You could go to a netball game. You could go to a basketball game. You have 1 year to claim your prize. So for the next year, you can pick whatever sport you want, whatever regular season game you want, and with the 2, you get 2 tickets on SmartB. All right, then. We'll see everybody soon. That's it, yeah? SmartB Racing Update podcast out tomorrow with Bryson Wills.
Thanks,
Thanks, man. I'll see you soon.